There will be a time when you want to add comments to your code, but you don't want that code to necessarily show up. Now, at this point, if you're brand new in your web development journey, you are probably taking notes on paper or some sort of other application, maybe a notes app, maybe on your phone, something like that. And there is a better way to do this. And it is actually just with code comments. And comments are a very common thing in programming altogether. Generally, it's a piece of code that you can write, but is never actually executed by your program. Or in our case, we can write a little bit of, I guess, HTML in a sense, or we can write just regular text. We can comment it out, and we can tell the browser, hey, actually don't show this at all. It still shows up in our source code, but it doesn't actually show up as rendered text on the page. So let's dive into this. So I just have VS Code open here. I'm going to create a new file, and I am going to save this as comments.html. And I'm going to just very quickly create an HTML5 page template. So HTML, I'll throw my head in there. I'll put a body in here and some text in here. And also let's go ahead and create that doc type. So that's an HTML5 doc type. And so I'm just going to open this up in Firefox, open up comments.html, and we just see some regular text, some text in here. Now let's make our page a little more complex. Let's go ahead in the body, let's add an H1 and say, welcome to my first web page, or yeah, web page, not website. And under it, we're going to have a paragraph. And in that paragraph, we are going to say, hello and thank you for joining me in this, I don't know, web viewing experience, I suppose. Maybe we want another paragraph. Feel free to contact me at Caleb Tallien, or Twitter. Let's do twitter.com/@CalebTallien, something like that. So we have a slightly more complicated page here, and it looks like this. Now, what if, because we're learning, we want to make some notes in here? So we head on back over to our editor, and we want to make a little note in here that says something along the lines of, when you learn how to add a link to my Twitter profile, something like that. Well, unfortunately, that's going to show up, and we don't really have a way to hide that right now. So what we can do is we can say, hey, browser, don't actually execute this, just make this a comment. This is going to get hard to see. Comments are generally somewhat hidden in a sense that the text usually fades in, but I guess that depends on the theme that you're using. So in my VS Code theme, you can't really see comments too well. So hopefully this turns out okay. Now to start an HTML comment, you start with less than, exclamation mark, dash dash. And that just looks like this, exclamation mark. Let's do this individually so you can see this. With no spaces between, something like that. And to end a comment, you simply do dash dash greater than. And you can see that everything between this opening comment tag and this closing comment tag is a different color. And that means it is a code comment. Now, your editor should be doing something very similar. The color might be different, but it should be fading it out or changing the color to some degree to tell you that it is different. So we have this now commented out. Everything between here is considered a code comment. And when we refresh our page, it doesn't show up anymore. Now, with that said, a lot of people think they can hide passwords and secrets and stuff in here, but that's not true. Because anytime you write any sort of HTML, 100% of your HTML is accessible to the browser. And if it's accessible to the browser, that means it's accessible to the user. So when I right click on my page and go to view page source, I can actually see. I can see my comment in here. When you learn how to add a link to my Twitter profile. So if I added another comment in here that just said, add the password of password QWERTY 123456, something like that. If we think that's secret, all we have to do is refresh our source code, and we will see add password of password QWERTY 123456. So it is not secure. It is simply a way to keep track of your notes. When you're creating a real website, you will often use notes or comments to sort of tell you what a particular section is about. So a real life example would be, I would add a code comment above my H1 here saying, this is the first blog post. And let's get rid of that. And I'm going to select all of this, copy and paste, which is Command C and Command V, or you can just select it, copy, and then paste. But now I have two in here. So I've got welcome to my first blog post, but or my first blog page. Welcome to my second blog post. And this one's going to be the second blog post. So now because all this content or this structure looks very similar, when you have 100, 200, 300 lines of HTML, you're going to sort of skim over it with your eyes, and a lot of it's going to start looking very similar. And a code comment can be a little snippet, a little shortcut. It can be your own little comment describing exactly what it's supposed to be. And whenever you go and load up your page, it will say, welcome to my first web page, welcome to my second blog post. And when we view that page source, let's close that old one. We can see this is my first blog post, and this is my second blog post. Now, when you get into the wild, when you start making websites for other people, or you start using other templates that other people have built, or you start working with other developers, you're going to see something that looks like this. Start blog post, and at the end here, it's going to be end blog post. And this one is going to say start blog post, and down here it's also going to say end blog post, just end that blog post. And again, we can use as much white space as we want, so remember, if you have to, spread things out. No one says you have to do this exact formatting. Maybe it's a little hard for you to read. Feel free to format it like this. Again, HTML gives you all the white space in the world. So let's go ahead and refresh our source code, and we can see we have a little extra white space in here. Start blog post, end blog post, start blog post, end blog post. And now we have a way to sort of categorize what all of this is about. So we know that everything between here is a blog post, and we know that everything between here is also a blog post. And maybe you would do that with a footer or a header or a section or a subscribe form. Now, when it comes to code comments, my personal advice is leave as many as you need. It's not doing any harm being in there as long as you're not storing any sort of like passwords or API keys or anything super secret. It's totally okay to leave notes in there. The reason that you want to leave notes is because future you is going to come back to this and probably have no idea what you are working on. And that's the honest truth. Every time you think to yourself, oh, I'll remember what I'm doing. And then 3 months later, you come back and you go, what was I working on? Why did I do it this way? Well, code comments are a way to sort of mitigate that problem. Additionally, you can also use code comments to help out other developers. So for example, viewing our source code here, if you were to give me this code, I could immediately see it. Oh, okay, start blog post here, end blog post here. Everything between it is one blog post. Oh, I see that again. Okay, so it's a second blog post in here. So now I have an immediate way of understanding what's going on without having to read all of the code. So it helps with maintainability, but also collaboration. So your task for this video is, let's go ahead, let's create a task in here. Your task is going to be create a new HTML page with proper structure. So use the doc type, use the HTML, use the head tag, use the body tag, that kind of proper structure. Create a header tag and a paragraph. And then lastly, add a code comment above the header tag about what your content is about. Basically, the TLDR version is just do what I did in this video. Just write some comments just like I did, and then try to view them in your page, and then try to view the page source to see that they actually do show up. Once you're done that, let's head on over to the next lesson and learn about how we can start linking to different pages.